Tal Kadosh Boker Or Shavua Tov Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Kufdaled Amud Aleph 104a1. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Papa. Right, we were actually in the two dots, right? But let's just say that these are the differences between the Chacharnuta and the Karlanuta. From then on in the Mishnah, it's either one or the other. Fine, we're on the two dots. So the two dots is 2, 4, 6 lines down. Ima malo chakoli sede bet hashlachin. Right now I come and I tell you, okay, I'm going to get this bet hashlachin, and all of a sudden it became dried, the mayan, which is the spring. So says the Gemara, right? So what happens? You take it down from the price. So says the Gemara, why? Elmaleh, maybe you could tell them Shema be'alma amnilecha. He only just told them stam a name. So they're really meant that's it. He just stam told them a name. So Milo Tanya, did we learn how Melech Haverov, somebody comes and he says to his friend, Bet kur afar ani mochelecha. I'm going to sell you a bet kur afar. Right? Afal pi shembo el letech, even though it only has a letech. Higrio, it belongs to him. Lo machalo el shema. Why? Because he only sold him the name. Vehu demit kire bet kor, as long as it was called a bet kor. Meaning, it was just a name. It doesn't mean that it has to be that way. I sold you the name. Now, it doesn't have to have a spring. And therefore, even if the spring got dried up, that's fine. Karmani mochelecha. He tells him it's going to be a kerem, which is a vineyard. So he says, right, what happens? He says, afal pi shembo gifanim, even though it's only going to have gifanim, he says, Igio, belongs to him. Shalom achalo lo shema, because he only sold the name. Vehu demit kire karma, but it's called karma. Pardes ani mochelecha. If it's going to be a pardes of pi shembo rimonim, even though it doesn't have rimonim. Igio, it belongs to him. Shalom achalo ela shema, because it only has the name. Vehu demit kire pardes, as long as it's called a pardes. So says the Gemara, Almas, you see from here. Amaleh, if he tells him Shema be'alma amri lecha, that I only gave you the kavanah of selling you a bet kor or a kerem or a pardes, but I didn't give you the kavanah that the karka actually has gifanim or rimonim. So hachanami, so too nimali, you could tell him Shema be'alma amri lecha. I just called it bet hashlachim, but really it's not met that it has a spring of water going through the field. So Amar Shmuel says, Lakashia, it's not a question. There's a difference. What was the terminology? Did he say that he's machkil the bet hashlachim, right? But he didn't ask for the bet hashlachim, or he's saying, right, that chokel machkil, which means tachkil li sadeh bet hashlachim, or machkilo bet hashlachim, which meaning depends on the order. That's what the ikar is. What do you want? Do you want that there has to be a spring there, or even without a spring? The fact that I gave you the land, that's already enough. So Elmaleh machkil lechoker, if he told him machkil lechoker, shema be'alma, he just told him a name. But if he told him choker lemachkil, which means that he wants to be choker at sadeh bet hashlachim, and he said that is barur, that so pay that he's strict on it. That's what he wants. Meaning depends on the terminology. You already know what's his kavanah, right? What's his intention according to the way that he says his words. So Ravina comes and he says, Idi, both cases is talking about machkil lachuker. Midikamar zeh, when he said this. So he says, once he says this, it's a different halacha. Miklad begavav askinan. He's inside the field. So bet hashachim, why did he say it? To come bet hashachim the way that it is now. Therefore, if it's going to become dried on later on, he just deducts the money, and then that's it. Okay? Mishnah in the middle of the page. Amkabel sadeh mechavero. If you receive a field from your friend in order to be a sharecropper, remember a sharecropper, you work the field, but your salary is not money, your salary is the fruits. So you get whether it's a half or a third or a quarter, depends on the agreement. Vehovida. Now you didn't do nothing. You left it, you didn't do a thing. You took the field, you did. Shaminota kama reuya lasot. Right? We say, okay, fine, let's evaluate. How much would you normally use? And then you have to give it. So, for example, if it would take out 100 pounds, so therefore you have to give, if it was going to be a 50-50 deal, so you have to give the guy 50 pounds. I didn't take out any fruit, but that was your problem. I gave you the field to work the field. You went, you put your feet up on the air, right? And you were taking a cigar the entire day. I'm going to tell you, I gave you a field to work. What are you doing? You made me lose money. So, okay, let's evaluate. If normally it took 100 pounds every single year, you have to give me 50 pounds. You have to pay. Why? I give you a field to work, not just to do nothing. Yeah? But that's what he tells him. If right now I'm not going to work and I'm not going to do anything with it, you have to pay, right, as if that it was going to be done properly. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Meir yadoresh leshon ediot. Rabbi Meir used to be medayek in the leshonot that people used to write in the shtarot. And according to that, he used to be posek the din. The Tanya was learned to the right of Rabbi Meir Omer, im ovir v'la avida shalem emet va. Rabbi Yehuda yadoresh leshon ediot. Right, also Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya was learned to the right of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda says, Adam evi korban ashir al ishto. A person could bring a korban ashir for his wife, right? Which means that the husband has to bring according to his stature, and he could not come and exempt himself with a korban ani, even though the woman is an aniyah. Meaning we go after the husband, right? Even though she's poor and he's got all the money, we go after him, and therefore he cannot bring. Remember, korban ole v'yored is a korban that if you're rich, you're ole, you bring the highest, and if you're yored, if you're poor, you bring the lowest, right? But what happens if the husband is very, very rich and the woman is not? So he has to, it goes according to him. Why? Because that's what he writes in the ketubah, achrayut ditlich alai. Any obligations that you have is on me. Min kadmat dina, from the beginning, from the day of the nisuin. And therefore, since he wrote that in the ketubah, if she's going to be obligated any type of a korban, and it's going to be a korban olev yored, even though if he would divorce her right now, he would just give her the ketubah, and that's it. Meaning, it's not like nowadays when they get divorced that she gets 50-50. No. She would get whatever it is, and that's it. So she's an aniyah. No, still, he's able to come, and he's able to, he has to come, and he's obligated to give the higher end because he's rich. Hillel Zaken also was Doresh, Lashon Idiot. The Tanya was learned to the Braita. And Alexandria and Mekachin and the Short Hem, they used to marry their wives. When they used to bring them in, other people used to come and take them away. So the rabbis wanted to make their children mamzerim. I don't understand. They do the first part of marriage, and when they want to take them into the chuppah, they go to another husband. What's going on? Yeah. So that's like Keilu engagement. Remember, it was the olden days, it was an engagement, but the engagement of olden days was a very strong engagement. Right? You needed a get to get divorced. You know what I mean? It was like mamash, like it wasn't just you take off the ring and you send her flying. You understand? Keilu it's mamash, it was like a real wedding. But the thing is, they didn't do the chuppah. They would just give her the ring, they would give it, but they wouldn't do the chuppah. So Amalem Hillel Zaken, have you li kitubat imachem, bring the ketubot. Have you looked at the only when we go into the chuppah are you my wife? And therefore they weren't considered mamzerim. Meaning it comes out that the ketubot where it was written in the lashon and ketubah already that they're only married once they go into the chuppah. So since they're only married once they go to the chuppah, beforehand it's nothing. And therefore, even though they basically broke off the real engagement and they went, it wasn't a real marriage. But it was a very good question, man. To do with the concept of the Kituban Kiddushin. Another example, Rabbi Yoshua ben Kurcha Yadoresh Lashon Ediot. Tanya was going to write that. Rabbi Yoshua ben Kurcha also said the same thing. Hamalvet Chavero. If you're going to lend money to your friend, Loi Mashkinenu, you cannot take right. The Shliach Betin cannot take a mashkon yoter mechovo, more than the debt. Nowadays they take more than the debt. If you're going to take right a loan, right, for the bank, so even if it's going to be a mortgage, what do they take? The house. The house is worth more than the mortgage, right? They will never take the collateral less than loan, right? It will always be more. Here, it's more. Yeah? Interesting if nowadays they would take an exact amount. I don't know if they would do that. If a bank, if you would come and you would tell them, okay, I'm going to take a loan, the value of the house, the exact value. I don't think so. It's always has to be more. That's why, because it always has to be more in order that they don't lose money. Always, but here, the Shliach Bedin cannot take more. He could only take the value or less. He says, because it's written over there, Tashlumt di itlach alai kol kavel dichi. The zchut tashlumin that I have is keneged the shovi of the mashkon, and therefore it cannot be more than that. Okay, Tama the katudachi. That's the reason why it's written like that. But if he wouldn't have written that, Lokanya, it's not going to be koneh. You could take it from the children. So you see from here that you could do that, right? That means basically the lender could come and collect the document, the obligation, even without, meaning he could collect the debt, even without a document. So it's not because of the shtar, Kuvdale de Mubet, 104b. So he says, Ahani kitiba legidaon. That which we have an obligation in the shtar is for the gidaon. What does it mean gidaon? that if right now was less, so therefore he's obligated to come and he's obligated to pay back from the fields. That's what it means. But the actual shovi is actually there. The actual value is the same. Rabbi Yossi Gamelken was Doresh Lashon Idiot. Tanya was learned to write that. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Makom Shanagu Lasok Ketubah Milveh, in a place where they would make the Nedunya as a milveh, which means if they had a minhag, that the husband would write the ketubah, that he's accepting upon himself to return the entire nedunya that they wrote in the ketubah, meaning the nedunya is a dowry. So let dowry, D-O-W-R-Y, dote in Spanish. What does it mean? For example, la dot. That's what I just told you. Dote, so dot, la dot. Okay, fine. So dot. So the dot, basically what happened was that she comes and she brings in an apartment. So now, technically speaking, you have to write that in the ketubah. So if they're going to come and they're going to write in the ketubah, they're going to write right now, right? That how do you call this? That how do you call this? You're going to write down in the ketubah. You know what? Here it is. You know, that meaning that I have to give you back that dowry. I have to give it back to you. So therefore, he comes and he says, if he divorces her, obviously, right? So therefore, he says, so therefore, it's like a milveh. So goveh milveh. So he's going to collect from the father-in-law the entire shovi of the nedunya, right? And then what happens is lichpol, right? Now, what happens if the minhag was that he doubles it? Meaning, many times, in order to show the appreciation, the chatan would say, okay, fine, she brought in a property that was worth $20,000. I'm talking about many years ago, yeah. So what happens? I'm going to write 40 to show kilu that, you know, like I'm giving. Oh wow, you know, like I appreciate. Look how much that. So you write down. You know, you're overvaluing it. Okay, so goveh mechza, you only take half of it. So it all depends on the minhag, right? Of the yeah. Exactly, 50 years ago. And today it's 2 million. Yeah, I heard. Narbelai, Gavu Tilta. In the people of Ben Rabbi, they used to collect only a third because they used to triple the value. So therefore, they would just take the real value. Meneimar Magbi Nami Shvacha. Meneimar used to come and take from the father of the Kala everything which is written in the Ketubah, even if they had the minhag to be kofel. So Amal Ravina Lemeimar says Ravina to Meneimar, Vatanya Lichpol. But I thought that if you double it, you only take half. Meaning you're only taking the real value. It's just out of a sense of kavod that they come and they write it. So answers the Gemara, la kashia. It's not a question. It all depends whether they made a kinyan or they didn't make a kinyan. If they made a kinyan, that's it. You have to take the full amount. If they didn't make a kinyan, they would only take the half, or according to the minhag of what it is. Ravina, Mishabach v'kativ livrates. So Ravina came and he doubled the amount of the nedunya for his daughter. So the family of the Chatan told Ravina, Nikre mine demor. Let's make a kinyan. Amalu, he says, Imikre lo michpal. He said, no. Don't go so fast. If you want to make a kinyan, I'm not going to write double. And if you don't make a kinyan, I'll write double. You understand? Kilo, he was saying, hey, like, don't fool around. You understand why? Because they wanted to, to take her. No, don't do it. How Gavra, there was a story. The Elmaleh, right, that a person said to his inheritors at the time of his death, give 400 zuz to the daughter for the ketubah. Shalach Ravaka ber Rabbi lekament Ravashi, they sent in front of Ravashi. 400 diinun tamne mea or 400 zuz dinu matan. One second. He said 400 zuz. What is the 400 zuz? 400 zuz is after you doubled it, so it's really bemet 200 zuz, or is it really bemet 800 zuz? Because it's 400 the real amount, and then you have to double it, so it's 800 zuz. That's the question. You understood? That's the question. So he says, Amar Ravashi says, Chazina ni Amar Havula, right? Arba me'azuze, dinun tamneze, Yamala ketovula. He says, did they say give it to her, or did they say write it for her? If they said write it for her, it's 400 zuz, but really it's 200, because you're only writing it in the ketubah, but you're only giving her 200. But if they said give her is the full amount, because you're giving it to her the actual money. So it's 400, which is going to be, right? So it all depends on the terminology of what it was. Okay? Ikadamni. Other people say, Amar Ravashi says, Chazina, and we're going to see, Iyamar, if he said liktubata for her ketubah, arba mea zuze. It's going to be 400 zuz. The inun tamne zuze, mea, which is 800 zuz. The Iyamar, but if he said biktubata, not liktubata, biktubata, meaning not the previous one was, did he say to give it to her or to write it for her? That was the difference. Here we're saying it for her ketubah or in her ketubah. So therefore, 400 zuz is only going to be 200 zuz. Velohi, but says the Gemara, no. Lo shna damar, there's no difference when he said liktubata or he said biktubata. 400 zuz is 200. Ad damar until he says havula stama, just give it to her. That's it. If he says give it to her, that's what it means, then give it to her the full amount. Another story. Hau Gavra, another story. He received a fill from his friend. Right? Amari says, he says, if I'm not going to work on it, I give you 1,000 zuz. So the guy thinks, listen, it's a good deal. Why? He becomes lazy. He doesn't want to work on it. Pay me 1,000 zuz. Right? What happened was, Ovid Tilta. Yeah, he left a third of it, right? That he didn't do anything with it. And he only worked on the other 2/3. So what does he have to bring? He has to pay the guy 333, no? One more time. The guy comes and he says, if I leave the field empty, I pay you 1,000. If he left a third, so he has to pay him 333.3333. Rava says it's machta. You know, it's an asmachta. An asmachta, look at you. What does that mean? He only just said it. I'm going to give you 1,000. It wasn't really bad meant that he was going to give 1,000 zuz. So therefore, an asmachta, meaning when a guy just comes and he says that he's going to say something, but he doesn't actually make a kinyan, an acquisition, or he doesn't write it down in some way, it's just some words. Yeah, words. Yeah, it's like, you know what? I'll give you $1,000. If you don't actually admit it, it's nothing. You understand? Urava, but according to Rava, what's it the difference from that which we learned in the Mishnah? Right? If you're not going to work it, you're going to pay from the best. So he says, Hatam lo kagazim. There, he's not exaggerating. Since he exaggerated, stop it. Meaning, if a guy told you a normal amount, yeah, you're going to take it for real. But if a guy already is telling you an over-exaggerated amount, you don't take it serious. You understand? Why? Because you're like, nah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah? Imagine somebody comes and he says, you know what, I'm going to buy 20 boxes. So, okay, fine. It's going to say 1,000 boxes. You're already suspecting, is it bad? Like he's pulling my leg. He's just exaggerating. They say he's not really telling me the truth. You understand? So for once he was already exaggerating with 1,000 zuz, and it's not the norm, you shouldn't have taken it literally. Okay? Next story. How gavra the kabilara l'shum shemeh. There was a person that he accepted a field with sharecropper. So that was, he planted the chitim, and then the field made the chitim with the same value of the shum shemim. Shum shemim are like the sesame seeds. So now, usually, right, the shum shemim are much more expensive than the chita, than the wheat. Okay? So here, what happened is that the wheat went up in value, and therefore he had the same, so therefore the guy didn't lose anything. Okay? So he said, yeah, but he mean that the field, right, is going to be more weakened, right? Because when you plant sesame seeds, it doesn't weaken as much as when you plant wheat. So even though you're right, you gave me the same value of money, because mina shamayim, the wheat went up in value, but you weaken my field. So people are going to say, he says it's better that you're going to plant shum shemim and that it should actually be weakened than that it shouldn't be because of ra'av, because of hunger. Okay, another case also similar. He says, right, again, you accepted the field in order to plant the sesame seeds, and then you planted the chitim. Okay, and you had a lot of atzachah until avda chita, you even made more than the value of shum shemim. So you should give in also the difference, which means you're going to take off the difference of the profits because of that you planted the wrong thing, and therefore again of the kach sha'ara. He says what? He says it only costs shevach. He says the karka didn't. Of course it was. Meaning for sure the land in itself caused it. So since the land caused it, so the owner of the land also deserves that it should be better. Meaning if my land produced more, it means that my land did it. So for you should also give me part of that extra that it produced. It says Nardai. This is like half of a pikadon and half of milve, meaning it's like half of a loan and half of a collateral. So therefore they did something which is good for both. And therefore it's a takanat chachamim, right, that it should be for good for both. Now that you just said that it's going to be half of it as a loan, if you want to accept upon, right, this, that he says over here, shechar, to drink, which means to take out on the outside, you're allowed to. Why? Because it's part of the halva also. But Rav Amar, no. That's why it's called an iska. The Elmaleh says, if I gave it to you, you can't start drinking beer in it. Meaning, imagine right now you're going to come and you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to come. And since it's also going to be considered half a loan, so I'm going to come and I'm going to start drinking, right? And then drink beer for me, my family, this and no. It's also an essek, right? It's a business thing. So you can't just use it for personal gains. So Amar of Idi Baravin says we met, what happens if he passes away? Now Saban Taltalin it becomes a Taltalin to his children. But Rav Amar, no, that's why it's called an iska, that if he dies, it does not become a Taltalin to the children, and therefore they have to actually come and they have to pay it back. Rava says, Chada iska tre. He says when there's an iska, you divide it between two different shtarot, so each half is like an iska on itself. So say that the malveh, so it's a loss to the lender. Okay, that's what he wants to say, that it's going to become a loss to the lender. But if it's going to be tre iske v'chad shtara, it's going to be two different, business transactions in one document. It's a loss to the borrower because obviously since he did it on one document, so therefore it's going to be a loss to the borrower.